Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade.
We chronicled the distinct memories of our childhood in our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s, which takes you on a notably historic journey through that often forgotten decade. We also want to hear about your experiences during the 1950s. We will feature guests whose special stories of that decade will bring to mind magical moments of reflection, some with tears, some with smiles, but above all, a good dose of laughter.
We would like you to chat with us as we bring to mind the sights and sounds so familiar to that time in history. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hello, everybody. Here we are back again for another wonderful story to tell of the 1950s with a guest that we know you will enjoy, and you will especially enjoy a physical feature about him too that makes him a popular guy in the area at a certain time of year. And this, Jackie, this is number 93 of our 1950 Fun Chats. We're working our way to 100 and more, and when it comes to 100, we hope to have a very special Fun Chat with Jackie and me, with the Pfeiffer sisters. So you get to see us on display, you might say, and kind of recap all that has happened since we have published our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s. So, sister dear, we have some work to do today, and can you bring us into the program?
Of course. Just a little bit before we meet our guest. Viewers, I'd like to have you look at a couple places on your screen. First, on the bottom, you'll notice www.whilethewindmillwatch.com. That is our website. And at the website, you'll see all sorts of information about the book, about the authors, about the events that the authors are attending, about the 1950s Fun Chat, and the vendors where the book may be purchased. Okay, speaking of book, look in the upper right-hand corner and you'll see that book has a beautiful North Dakota sunset, which wraps around it. And it also has the silhouette of a windmill, which has quite a bit of importance in that little book. And notice in the lower left, you'll see a little white spot. Hard to read, but what it is it is a very special award. Our book was published in April of 2021. The award was granted to the book in 2022, and it's an award by the Independent Press Award. It's an Independent Press Award, and it's the distinguished favorite for a regional nonfiction in that category. So we are very honored that it was selected for that.
Do you suppose one of the reasons that our book received the award because the windmill talks in it?
Don't know.
Okay, well, that's a very unique
reason.
Yeah,
we are grateful. Yes,
very unique aspect.
I'd like to introduce you all to a man who we will enjoy. His name is Mike Fink, and Mike was born November 7th in 1954 in Harrington, Kansas, on his next older brother's second birthday. Well, therefore, all his life, he heard birthday greetings of "Happy birthday, Dale and Mike." He was the fifth child of a family of 6 boys, followed by 1 girl. Now, Mike is a graduate of Northern Arizona with a Summa Cum Laude engineering degree. He recently retired from the Boeing Corporation after being employed for 35 years.
Do you suppose Summa Cum Laude means he's really smart?
No.
I think it has something to do with that, though.
I think it means he's a really nice guy. But we'll go on. Maybe both of those. Okay. So Mike and his wife, Karen, have a blended family of 6 children and 7 grandchildren. A couple now live in a quiet life on 6 acres south of Kettle Falls in northeastern Washington. Mike is anticipating a Santa Claus gig during the Christmas season. Can you guess why?
Yeah.
Mike, welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Thank you for being here.
Get it in, girls.
Yeah.
Well, let's begin. At the time of your birth, your father was working on a wheat harvest crew, which started in Texas and ended in North Dakota. Now, please explain to our audience the meaning of harvest crew and what it meant to your family. And why did it begin in Texas and end in North Dakota?
Well, a little bit of background, I guess. My father grew up on a farm in eastern Pennsylvania, in a Pennsylvania German culture, but he always wanted to go west and travel around out west. So he had met my mother, and they were serious about their relationship, but he wanted to go west. So he left her and went west, and went around from different states getting different jobs. And then eventually he brought my mother and my three oldest brothers out west with him to Kansas. And he met up with a crew that was combining wheat. And so they hired him on, and they started to harvest in Texas and moved from town to town up through the Midwest to harvest the wheat all the way up into North Dakota. So wherever they were stationed at the time to harvest the wheat, Mom would come along with the trailer and all us boys in it to the different towns along the way. When they were finished at one location, the crew boss would tell them where the next location was. They'd load the combines on a train and then meet up at the next town where they were to harvest the wheat.
Okay.
So my dad did that for several years.
And by a trailer, what size trailer? What was that like?
Your motor.
Your home on wheels.
It went home on wheels, and it got tipped sideways twice, according to my brothers, by tornadoes.
Oh.
So I was born in 1954, and we have a Christmas card from my parents that they sent out that year in 1954, and we were all on the sofa at the back end of the trailer. So I think it was like a 16-foot aluminum trailer, much like an Airstream, but it wasn't an Airstream. So.
Did you ever feel really confined in that, or once you got to a location, you had freedom to roam?
Well, yes, I guess I didn't feel confined. I was pretty small by then at that time. And so, but you're right. In those days, Mom and Dad would open the door and we were out playing wherever we were. So it was play in the dirt, play in the fields, play wherever. So it was life as it was.
Why did the wheat harvest start in Texas and move north?
Well, pretty much the wheat would be ready earlier in Texas, and then a little bit later up in North Dakota. So they would just go along with the wheat as it matured and was ready for harvest.
Yes, I might explain to our viewers that there is a little weather disturbance as we are recording this. So, we just wanted you to be aware of that. But Mike, do you recall that these custom harvesters would stop at the same farms year after year?
I don't recall, but with conversation with my older brothers, I think there were contracts that were set up at the certain farms that along the way that they would go to the same ones each year as they had contracts.
That's interesting that the combines were hauled to the next location by rail. And did they have trucks too then that they used for transporting the crop to the bins or to the elevators?
Right. They did. So they had the trucks and the combines.
Okay.
And according to my oldest brother, he said these combines, actually you could change the front ends off and put a cotton harvester on the front. And so they could also be used to harvest cotton,
Yes.
which I think is ready before wheat. So anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that piece of equipment, is that not called a header, Janine? Yeah.
It is. Yes. Yes. Well, tell us about some of the meals your mom used to cook in that trailer house for her children.
Well,
Do you remember?
I was pretty small, so I'm not really sure. But Pennsylvania German food is a lot of meat and potatoes and noodles and things of that sort. So very heavy foods. So
Sure.
they sustain you for a whole day out in the field.
Yeah. Yes. Did any of your boys, of the boys in your family, were they ever old enough to help with any of the custom harvesting, or not? You were too young. Everyone.
No. Yeah, we were all too young for that. However, after we moved from Kansas in 1960 back to Pennsylvania, that's where a lot of my relatives had farms, dairy farms primarily. And so many of us were sent out to the farms to work for the relatives. So I spent many summers out on the farm.
Yeah, you mentioned in not today, but in previous conversation, that life was really hard. Lack of money, lack of things, but yet you had a loving family. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, obviously having 6 boys, that can be a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so
And how do you
when
read
Dad's out working all day, and when Dad's out working all day and the boys are at home making trouble with each other, there's discipline to be had. And so we certainly got our share of it. And sometimes it was
And
a
you're
bit
better
rough.
people for it, probably.
And we are. And we are.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's amazing too that my brothers and my sister were all still alive, very healthy. So that's a testament to a good family start.
Yes. Do you remember any specific pranks that your brothers pulled on you as being one of the younger ones?
Any pranks? Well,
Yep. I know this is question is relative. We hadn't talked about that.
Yeah. So I don't know pranks specifically, but we certainly were taunting each other a lot, and so there was always fights that would happen, and so. But
you figured it out.
None of them were too serious. So.
No.
You lived to tell about it anyway. And
go ahead, Janine.
And how was it? Did it affect you to share your birthday with an older brother?
Well, not only did I share my birthday with my next older brother, for most of my growing up, we lived in a 3-bedroom house. Of course, 1 bedroom was allotted to mom and dad, and that means 7 kids were in the other 2 bedrooms. So not only did I share my birthday with my brother Dale, I got to share a bed with my brother Dale for most of my growing up. And so that got real interesting when he took a love in the high school, and he had a dream about her one night. I had to wake him up pretty quick. That was not going to go well.
No. So when you went back to Pennsylvania, and you were raised as a Pennsylvania German in an Amish and Mennonite community. So how did that move affect you? Was that a positive or a negative thing, or a little bit of both? That move.
For me personally, it was a little bit rough because I was so young, and I transitioned between several schools in a short period of time. And so I didn't really get a foundation at school. It was a little rough for me personally. But growing up in the Pennsylvania German community, it's very close community. It's a lot of people working very hard, people that work together. So especially in the Amish community, for example, if one of their barns burns down, they all get together and rebuild it. It's an amazing thing to watch. So the culture itself is very close and hardworking people.
Let's leave the Mennonite and the German behind, and let's get to the point where you graduated from high school. Then you went out on your own, and what does that mean? What did that mean?
Well, like my father, I guess, I just didn't want to stay around Fleetwood, Pennsylvania, and so I joined the Navy. And I had aspirations of seeing the world. But because I had a special skill that the Navy wanted, they sent me over to Guam to calibrate instruments off of submarines. I was on Guam for 15 months, and then my next duty station was in San Diego. I spent 4 years in the Navy, and I did get my chance to get out of Fleetwood. But after I got out of the Navy, I went back to Fleetwood for a couple years.
A couple years. Okay, so how did you acquire this special skill that sent you to Guam?
So in high school, they started up a vocational school, and I knew because our family was poor, I wouldn't go to college on my parents. So I went to vocational school to learn a trade, and the trade that I learned in vocational school was called instrumentation. So basically, it is industrial systems that use pressure switches, controllers, things like that. They need to be maintained and calibrated to work correctly. And so I learned calibration. When I went in the Navy, I told him I had this thing called instrumentation. He said, "Oh, you need to be an instrument man." Okay, I'll be an instrument man. So they sent me to this school out at Lowry Air Force Base. It's actually a Air Force base, but it turned out to be the premier metrology school for all of the services. And at Boeing, many of the older gentlemen that I worked with at Boeing in the calibration business all went through that school. So it was a very specialized school, and just a great opportunity for me that once I did get my engineering degree, and with that metrology background, I became a metrology engineer at Boeing.
Still metrology. It's not meteorology. It's metrology.
Metrology is the science of measurement.
Oh, okay.
It's not weathers, and it has nothing to do with buses. So,
okay.
Metrology.
What kindled your interest in that, other than you took this class?
My grandfather.
Oh, tell us about that.
My grandfather, John Bortz, my mother's father, he would go to auctions on a weekend. So the auctioneer stands up there and does his thing and rattles off all the numbers, and you wave your card and buy stuff. He would just buy odds and ends of all kinds of things. But what fascinated me with him, he fixed anything and everything. He would sit at his workbench and take things apart and just work endlessly at fixing things. Whether he needed them or not, it didn't matter. He just fixed things. And I was always amazed at that. And so I credit my grandfather for what I did in my life. So I still
What a
love
great
it.
skill.
Yeah.
A great skill to have. Uh-huh. It's Mike, going back into the 50s and even in the 60s, I want to talk about Christmas. Did you celebrate Christmas in your family? And if so, what were some of how did you go about doing it?
In that large
So,
family.
Um, we were Lutheran as Christians, and so we did celebrate Christmas, and it was a big to do. I mean, we had a big tree, and we put up the train set around the bottom of it, and had the community and the whole thing, the whole show, and Christmas morning it was packed full of presents. I don't know where my parents got money for that, but it was a big thing for them to treat their children to gifts at Christmas. So it was a big thing for us.
What do you recall? What a favorite Christmas gift might have been for you?
For me, well, there was one year I wanted Rock'em Sock'em robots. I still have Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Oh, what are they?
Well, I think it has to do with fights with my brothers out in the backyard.
That's good.
But another one was a rescue helicopter. I just was fascinated by the whole idea of rescuing people and helping people. And so as a senior in high school, I joined the local fire department. And so I was a junior hosman at the Fleetwood Volunteer Fire Company.
Yeah.
So I did that until I left and went in the Navy. And later in life, I became a fireman again. So my rescue helicopter, that was pretty special.
Did you have Christmas stockings?
We did have Christmas stockings. Yes.
Did you ever get a lump of coal in yours?
Oh, no.
I think there was lots of threats of that. You better behave or else.
Pennsylvania would have coal.
But there was always an orange down in the bottom of the toe. I'm not quite sure what the orange was always about.
Yeah. Well, it was round and it fit right in the toe. That's what our first one was. And when our kids, we had stockings here, and there was always an orange or a mandarin down there.
Yeah.
What we would get, about Christmas time might have been about the only time we would get fresh oranges.
Right.
Because of the expense that they were.
Yeah.
Well, I think all of us probably deserved a lump of coal one time in our lives, but if we got it, that's another story.
So to this day, I even in being married to Karen and with all of our children and grandchildren, Karen makes stockings for each of them. So it's a kit, but you do the weaving of the art that's on the stocking, and so she's made several for her children and grandchildren. So I made a wooden Christmas tree that we could put hooks on the limbs of the Christmas tree and hang all these stockings.
Yeah.
So at Christmas time we have how many? 25 stockings hanging off of this tree.
How tall is the tree?
I think it's 8 feet, I think.
Oh boy. Yes.
Yeah.
Are the Christmas stockings then all of the same flavor, the same type of weaving, or are there various kinds?
For her children, that she did various kinds for the children. For my girls, my mother knitted them their stockings. So my oldest daughter, Krista, her stocking is very long. My younger daughter, Kelly, she got a shorter stocking.
Oh, well, the older daughters is stretched out from all those years. That would be. I would be interested to know if it's the same pattern my mother used to knit Christmas stockings, and I have continued that tradition too. So maybe later on we can compare Christmas stockings.
maybe we'll compare Christmas stockings.
Yes. Well, and then surely there was special food at on your holidays. Did your mom bake?
For the holiday, or
Yeah, for the Christmas meal.
well, the Christmas meal was usually either a giant turkey or
Uh-huh.
a big baked ham.
Uh-huh.
But there was always one special meal that came on New Year's Day.
Mhm.
Oh,
On New Year's Day, we would have pig stomach.
well,
Right?
that would be special.
Have you ever had pig stomach?
No.
Oh, it is. And how
So-
was that prepared?
Well, you take the stomach lining of the pig,
Yeah.
and of course it's cleaned, and
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
stuff it full of potatoes and sausage and things of that sort, and then you sew it closed and you bake it in the oven.
That sounds very German.
Yes, it
So
does. Mhm.
it was always tradition to start the new year with pork and sauerkraut,
Mm.
because pork, the pig, when they rut, they push the dirt forward when they're digging in the dirt. So
Yes.
that's symbolic of moving forward, is
Oh.
to eat
Okay.
pork. And
Yeah.
the sauerkraut cleans the blood. So you're starting out by moving forward in the new year with clean blood.
Ah. Well,
Pork,
Sauerkraut and pig stomach.
did you eat that cooked pig stomach too? Was that kind of like the lining?
Yes. Yes, and even
Or
my
the
sister
coating.
liked that. And that's pretty
Uh-huh.
special.
So
Yes.
maybe it's similar to making sausage and using the intestine like for the casing,
Yes.
and maybe that's what that pig stomach served as. But it was just held a bigger amount of food.
Yeah, and Mom, we had a big family, so she would make 3 or 4 of those. And,
Yes. Did you raise the hogs then from which the stomachs came?
no, because once we moved to Pennsylvania, we didn't have our own farm.
Okay.
So we'd
Mhm.
get those at a local Mennonite farm, which where Mom got a lot of her produce and things from.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, yes. Well, and when you talked about before working on a farm back in Pennsylvania, did you have a favorite activity on the farm? Favorite chore?
Well, strange as it is, baling hay was always the favorite chore, and
Yeah.
while it is hard work,
Mhm.
and out in that heat and humidity, you'd come in at the end of the day and hay dust would be in your nose and in your ears,
Mm.
all over the place. But it was a hard day's work, and at the end of the day, you knew you did hard work. Your body was sore. You saw the barn get filled up with hay, so that the livestock could have food for the winter. And at the end of the day, come into the farmhouse, and like my great aunt Sarah, she had a table that could seat, I think, 15 people around it. And so all the farmhands for that day sat around for the evening meal, and it was just a great blessing to work hard during the day and have great community and a good feed at the end of the day.
You bet.
We were raised German as well, but my grandmother said cleanliness is next to godliness also. So you, at the end of your day, you cleaned up after your work and extra godliness.
There's such great reward in hard work,
Mhm.
if you look for it.
Mhm.
If you look for it.
It is, and that's one thing. My father stressed on us a lot. Work hard,
Mhm.
and trust me, I was not a smart kid that got the Summa Cum Laude. It was because I worked hard.
You bet. Yeah.
That's
Might have been a bit of both.
yeah. It was the German in me.
Yes.
Well, Mike, we're nearing the end of our fun chat, and I curious to know, can you recall a fun thing from that affected your life from the 1950s or even going into the 1960s as you got older?
Well, I think for me, I always liked working on cars. And so a fun thing for me from the 1950s was great cars. I built several 56 Chevys, and I always enjoyed the classic cars from the 50s.
Yeah.
Right now, I have a 1965 Thunderbird because I'm a little bit older now, and that's a little bit more refined. So,
and fun too.
but
to me, just the
idea of driving down Route 66 in a classic old 50s car, that's all American. And so
that's right.
Have you done that? Have you been on Route 66?
I have, but not in an old car.
Okay. Okay.
And now there's something to think about.
Yeah. And Mike, what from the 1950s, it might be something we talked about or in this broadcast or maybe not, but what has influenced you in your adult life that you might have learned or experienced in that 1950s, 1960s decade?
I think the great thing about that time period is that life was very simple. As kids, we could jump on our bicycle and go out and cruise all over town or visit the neighbors, and everybody trusted each other. Everybody knew each other. It was a very simple kind of life that was just, you didn't lock your doors. Everybody trusted each other. It was a fantastic way to live.
Yes, yes. We concur with that. And many people who have been our guests have said the same thing and just so enjoyed and appreciated having that as part of their childhood and even how they could relate to that and what you just talked about. So yes, it was a wonderful time, and it's fun for Jackie and me to talk about the 1950s and highlight that decade because it was so unique for especially, well, I'm going to say especially children because I was a child in that time, but I imagine adults felt that way too. And a great time to recall.
It certainly comes out in your book, and I just so enjoy reading that book and reading of your life in North Dakota. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, our pleasure. And thank you. And viewers, we want you to know that Mike has been our model for our Father's Day ad at Crandall Coffee. Yes. Where he sitting there reading our book. And it's great to have that picture in that ad of him. So, and we're so grateful that he responded to Jackie's request for that, as well as having you as a guest on our Fun Chat. Thank you, Mike. This has been wonderful.
It was very nice. So, and don't forget to show this Fun Chat to your friends and your relatives. Look, all your brothers and your sister and your children, grandchildren. Oh, you're going to be you're a star.
And we certainly want a picture of you when you get that Santa Claus gig too.
Okay.
So viewers.
Keep on practicing.
Yeah. Viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this fun chat that we've had with Mr. Mike Fink who now resides in Kettle Falls, Washington. And so we hope that you will come back next time to watch another fun broadcast on our 1950s Fun Chat. Jackie, how can you?
Well, I want to just remind everybody that there are two colors to remember. That is the red subscribe button and the blue thumbs up button that you see on your screen. Please tap those and tell your friends and even your relatives about this 1950s Fun Chat. Until next time, toodaloo.
Bye-bye.